Hello, everybody. My name is Officer Michelle Funes with the recruiting section with Las Vegas Metro. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit about recruiting section, different sections within our department, and a little bit about what's going on with the current events. I do have a special guest today. I have Officer Marquise Hines.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. I work for the Office of Community Engagement. And what we do, we have a few different programs within our unit. We have the Police Athletic League, gang prevention. We have the LIMA program, which is a law enforcement intervention for mental health and addiction. We also have the Hispanic Police Academy and Fusion Liaison. We do a lot of community events within our Las Vegas Valley. And that's basically it, just a lot of community-oriented policing.
So, we're really happy to have you here today because, as you know, you and I, your section and my section, we work together a lot.
Right.
Mostly in recruiting, we focus with the hiring process, the background process, getting everybody ready for either the corrections, police officer side, and civilian side.
Right.
And then when we're trying to make sure we're reaching everybody in our community, different events and different connections, that's when we reach out to you guys because you guys are out there in the community every single day.
We appreciate it.
So thank you so much for coming today.
Yep.
So you already spoke a little bit about OCE, the Office of Community Engagement. Another thing that we're going to talk about too that both our section works with and you're a big part of it is our sheriff recruiting councils. I don't know if a lot of people know, but in our department we have what we call recruiting councils, which reaches out to different parts of our community as a whole. We have the Asian Pacific Islander Community Council, Recruiting Council, we have the LGBTQ plus Recruiting Council, and the Hispanic Latino Recruiting Council. We also have SARC, which stands for the Sheriff's African American Recruitment Council, which you are a president of.
Right.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
So I joined the department in 2012. In about 2013, I had found out about what SARC was, and at the time, Captain Scott, who is now retired, he was actually the president of SARC. And basically what SARC does is we understand that our black officers and civilian numbers do not match our population. So what SARC's main goal is to reach the community, try to get more black officers and regular, whether that's patrol officers or corrections officers, to apply. And once they do apply, get them through the process, kind of guide them, mentor them in order so that they can become a part of the department. And we also do internal mentorship. So anybody who is looking to test for a certain position, SARC is able to connect you to somebody in that position so that you're not going into an oral board without any type of information or background on what that job does. So we're always looking for more members for our SARC board or our SARC just to become a part of SARC. And again, we do a few different events throughout the year. We do some recruitment events with you guys. You guys have had us out at UNLV a few times, different malls, different places, just to reach our black population within the community. So again, if you are listening to this and you're a community member or you are a LVMPD employee and you want to be involved with SARC, just shoot me an email, m14609henry, h@lvmpd.com, m14609h@lvmpd.com. We would love any extra support with getting these numbers up.
You brought up a couple things that bring to my attention. You brought mentorship and then kind of everything you described is just making people feel comfortable.
Right.
So I'm part of the Hispanic Latino Recruiting Council, and I can tell you some of the hurdles that we have in our community is talking to the parents of the ones that want to apply for a department. So what I mean by that is we have parents that have come from other countries that have an older generation mindset from another country to live here in the U.S. that back home in their country, their police department or their police themselves, they just don't trust. And therefore, it kind of flows into the mindset here in the U.S. where they don't want their children applying for the department because they believe they run that way. So that's kind of a hurdle that we have is trying to let the parents know that, hey, we're different. We have trained. We do things to make sure everybody's successful. There's just all these things within our department to help out. With that being said, what kind of hurdles do you see within the Black community that you try to talk to the families, to the individuals testing, just overall?
I'll give you just my backstory. Growing up, I didn't have a dislike for the police, but I necessarily didn't like the police either, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. I knew that the police were there to protect us. I knew that if I ever got my house broken into, that they were who I'm supposed to call. But I also knew from a very young age, just talking to my dad, my family, watching the news, that there are racial disparities in the country that are unfair for black men and women, but particularly me being a male, I knew that the odds are stacked against me, or that the likelihood that I will end up in jail based on a crime that my white counterpart might end up in jail, might not end up in jail on, was a probability. So I never was one to be friends with the police. I was never one to try to have any type of encounter that was unnecessary. And that's not just my story, that's a lot of the black community. So one of the big issues when getting people to join the department is they just don't trust law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They look at what's going on in different jurisdictions across the country, or even here in Las Vegas sometimes, and they just don't trust law enforcement. So that's a hurdle that we have to overcome, because as a now police officer, I know the benefits of being part of the solution instead of what we may perceive as the problem. And historically, it has been a problem, but I think one of the ways to overcome that problem is to, become a police officer, become part of the solution, so that we can, have some say so in how things are conducted. Growing up, I had, even when I was testing for Metro, I tested as a CO in 2012. And I had friends, I had families. Oh, you gonna be a pig? You gonna be a snitch? Things like that. And that's just, honestly, that's not something that you want to hear from the people around you, especially when it comes to a job. When you look at policing, granted, it takes a special type of person to go through an academy, go through field training, and enter a profession to where you are now being selfless with yourself and putting your life on the line to protect and serve others. And for people to downgrade that or have some type of negative connotation, it's not a good feeling. So a lot of black men and women both avoid this profession because of that. That's not everybody's experience, but that is a lot of my peers' experience.
When you decided to join, I know you keep saying you want to be part of a solution, which I think that is just amazing because you want to get into it, you want to fix things, you want to see where things are going wrong, where they're going right, and see how you can make some changes. What other reasons, or is that the sole reason you joined
I'll
the
be
department?
I'll be honest with you. I did 4 years in the Air Force. I was a firefighter. I had plans on becoming a firefighter since I probably was 5. My dad is 29 years on with Clark County Fire, and that was my goal. When I went to the Air Force, I did 4 years as a firefighter, and when I was getting out of the Air Force, Clark County was not hiring. So my uncle, who works at the jail, he said, Marquise, we're hiring. I told him I do not want to be a police officer. He's like, no, come be a corrections officer. It's great money. And then after doing a little research, I said, I'll just suck this up and go be a corrections officer for a little bit. And truth be told, being in the jail for 3 years, and sometimes I would look into these units, and out of the 80, 90 inmates in there, 60 of them will be black.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of white people that go to jail. There's a lot of Hispanic people that go to jail. But I can say it's a disproportionate amount of black people locked up. So I say, and again, not everybody who's locked up committed a crime, but I'm not saying they just ended up in there by just willy nilly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure majority of them actually did something to end up in jail. But I told myself that maybe if I'm able to go to the streets and catch them before they enter this jail, I can make a change and make a difference. So that is one of my sole reasons for joining the police department as far as transferring over to the patrol side. I care about the entire community, but when you see one house on fire and the rest of them are okay, now's not the time to say, all these houses matter. Sometimes you have to focus on that one house. And I said, if I can play my part in changing the perception of black police officers within the community, that might reduce these numbers that are incarcerated. So that was one of my main motivations.
And transferring from corrections to police officer isn't anything easy. You basically
No.
have to restart from the beginning.
Right, yeah.
another academy, another field training.
Yeah.
It's not just something you can choose to do overnight.
Right.
But the fact that you took that step to learn the process on the other side just shows that you actually are trying to learn different areas. And I bring that up because I've known you for a while, and I know that when you don't understand something, you go out and you search for it.
Right.
You either try to get into that section to understand the good,
Yep.
the bad, the ugly, whatever it may be.
Yep.
What other things have you done in department to try to learn and how you can better yourself, your community, and the Black community?
Right. So I have done a few different ride-alongs. I've done a few different sit-alongs. I've again, you being in recruiting, I came and talked to you guys a few times on what are the recruitment tactics, not just with Black people, but with anybody. What do you say to people to get them to say, yes, I want to be a police officer, who weren't thinking about it prior? And then me being a Black male, I'm able to incorporate what you guys teach me and say, now I know what I can say to not just anybody, but specifically a Black person, being the president of the Sheriff's African American Recruitment Council. So that may help more Black people get on the department. Let them know it's not as hard as you may think it is. This isn't the type of job that you are perceiving it to be. So that's one thing, just getting out there in the community. Another thing with the job that I have the luxury of being able to go talk to a lot of community members, a lot of churches, a lot of businesses, a lot of people in general, and tell them, hey, if you have a nephew or if you have a son or even yourself, a lot of people get the misconception that, oh, I'm too old, I'm 40 years old, I'm 50 years old. No, we don't have an age range. As long as you're able to pass these certain tests, we need good people on this department. So that's one thing that I'm able to do too, is just reach the community. And again, even as a patrol officer doing calls for service, those officers have the same capabilities. If you go on a call and, unfortunately somebody's a victim of a crime, you let them know, hey, we're also hiring. If obviously you have to do it at the right. You don't want to talk to somebody who just got beat up and say, "Hey, come join the police department." Yeah. But if you happen to find somebody that is a good candidate for this job, always throw it out there. As Metro likes to say, everybody's a recruiter. So never stop recruiting, and that's whether they're Black, white, this or that. But like I said, I strongly try to push getting Black men and women on this department, just because I know our numbers aren't what I believe they should be at. The last time that I checked, which was, I want to say sometime last year, our numbers as far as percentage wise, Black officers was 8.5 or 8%, which was between the jail and patrol. So if you take half of that, say half of the Black officers in the jail, half are on patrol, that leaves patrol with about 4 to 5% of Black officers patrolling a valley of 12 to 13% Black, which puts our numbers lower than what we are as far as reflecting the community. So you go in a briefing room and you have only maybe 1 or 2 Black officers, and then the communities out there, we have predominantly Black communities sometimes, but Black people are spread out throughout this whole valley. And every time they have an interaction with a police officer, 60, 70, 80% of that time, it's not somebody that looks like them. That's not going to build that. A lot of times, it's not going to build that that trust that they may not have for our department. Human beings by nature, it's uncomfortable to talk about, but human beings by nature, we are tribal. We attract what we are a lot of times. If I'm a Black person and a Black officer happens to pull me over, I may be more comfortable than if a white cop pulls me over, based on history, based on the news, based on the media. And if that never happens as a Black member of this community, you might think, man, policing isn't for Black people. Policing is for white people. And that's just going to continue to not get us the numbers that we need to be a fair representation of the department.
And speaking of, like you said earlier, somebody might feel more comfortable or not. Somebody might feel more uncomfortable getting stopped by a white officer. And you mentioned earlier that you didn't really get support from some of your family members.
Mm-hmm.
Has that changed now that you've been on department for about 8 years? Has that changed their perception of if they get stopped by a Black officer, a Hispanic officer, or a white officer? Or has it just been one of those things that they just don't understand?
I know that the people that are closest to me, their interactions with all of Metro, based on me being here, most of their interactions are positive. Mm-hmm. I've had the few different one or two, honestly, within my 8 years, I've had maybe 2 to 3 times where my family has come to me and said, man, this officer was rude. This officer, but I've had those conversations. Never be afraid to hold an officer accountable. If an officer disrespects you, if an officer does something, get their name and badge number. That way that we are able to hold officers accountable. What the, what the community, I want them to understand is that cops hate bad cops just as much as the community hates bad cops. We are not, and people like to throw out the one bad apple spoils the bunch. Fortunately, we are not apples. We are humans. So if you put a lot of good cops around maybe one cop on that borderline bad good, he'll probably take hold and say, man, I can't do this stuff around these guys. These are good guys. And that is what Metro is. We have a bunch of good guys. And when you sprinkle in one or two who, whether they do not have the right mindset to be a police officer, whether they don't care about the community the way they should, those are the ones that we want to weed out. Those are the ones that do not deserve to wear the badge. Those are the ones who should not be policing various diverse communities.
I completely agree, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it is true, and it's an uncomfortable conversation. It's an ugly conversation, but there are bad cops out there.
Absolutely.
Just there's no hiding it, and we don't want to because we, especially our department, we make sure our community knows that we're telling them. We either put them on the news, have the briefings, whatever it may be, but we want our community to know when we're doing really good, when we're doing really bad, and when we have those bad officers.
And I tell people all the time, us as law enforcement, we have this perceived power that whether it exists or doesn't exist, that power isn't something that you get when you get a badge. That power is given to us by the community and by the support that they have for us. So the second that we decide to forsake that trust, that power is gone. And it's up to us to build that community trust. It's not the communities, it's not on their shoulders to make us as officers feel comfortable. While I would wish that every single time we were out in the field, that a person knew, let me not make this officer uncomfortable. Let me not. But unfortunately, everybody hasn't been through training. We are trained officers. We have been through implicit bias training. We have been through CIT training. We have been through use of force training. And again, everybody makes a mistake. But for the most part, we should know how to deal with very diverse groups of people. And we should not put that on the community to say, no, you made me uncomfortable. You made me uncomfortable. No, it is our responsibility to adapt to whatever we come in contact with. And again, I know just like every other police officer knows that may hear this, every situation is unpredictable. You're going into an unpredictable thing and you might do something that you did not mean to do. You might have a split second lapse of judgment, but those mistakes are okay until they aren't okay. Don't make a mistake and honestly continue down that path of mistakes. I'll give you an example. Everybody living in the United States has seen the video or heard of the video where the officer is leaning on George Floyd's neck for 8.5 minutes. We as a department, we know do not kneel, put your knee into somebody's neck. We know that as a department, I can't speak for any other agency's use of force policy, but we as Metro know that's not right. Especially if you have 2, 3, 4 officers standing around that's able to say, hey, we got him. Let's get him up. Let's get him out. You do not sit there for 8.5 minutes leaning on someone's neck. And when people do that, it burns the trust of the public because what law enforcement officers sometimes are putting out there is that I can do what I want to do. And that's not the case. We do what is best for the community. We do not do what we individually want to do. Because at the end of the day, whether somebody committed a check fraud allegedly or whether they jaywalked or even if they got into a fight and done something violent, it is not our job to be the persecutor of this person. We have to abide by the law, take this person into custody in a case and in a manner authorized by law so that we can, using the most minimum amount of force necessary to affect that law. We did not see that the other day, which is the reason why we are experiencing some of the things we're experiencing right now.
Speaking of the current events that are going on, there's a lot of emotions. Just anger, confusion, sad. I mean, I can just go on listing all day how we all feel about this, how the whole community, how the United States feels about it. How do you, as a black male police officer, feel about everything that's going on right now? And I know that's a broad question, um, but just as far as I know you talked a little bit about the department, but as seeing our community going into the protesting, to some of the things we've seen on the news and some of the things you and I have had to experience down there ourselves, with the protesting, how do you feel about that?
I know that as a police officer, and especially as a black man, you have to be empathetic to what somebody's going through. What we're experiencing as a country is not because solely of George Floyd. This is decades of law enforcement, um, the court system, the incarceration system, violating black and brown people to the point where now that is the tipping point. People are fed up, and you have people of all races, people of all colors and creeds coming together to say enough is enough. So when I see people out in the streets of Las Vegas protesting, I'm not upset by that at all. I fully support them protesting. I want them to continue to protest whenever something does not is not right. Speak out about it. Do not hold your tongue. Let us as law enforcement know where we mess up. What I do not condone, yet I do empathize with it, but I do not condone the violence. I do not condone the looting and the burning up of things, because that puts people who are not guilty of whatever you're upset about. It is not. It's just not the right thing to do, because that way innocent bystanders get hurt. We had an officer get shot, and even though the person that shot him was not a part of the protest, a lot of when you start violently protesting, the mission gets lost. Your words are not heard because all people see now is violence, and that is why that has to come to an end. But when I see people protesting and voicing their opinion and making change, enforcing change, I can't be against that. I am all for it. I just want that everybody to do it safely. I want nobody to get hurt, and that's my opinion on it. Because I'm definitely empathetic to everybody in Minnesota, everybody in the United States, and around the world who have experienced or seen something traumatic at the hands of police officers. And the reason they're so upset is because they expect more from us. And they're not wrong for that. They are right in expecting more from us because that's our job. We sign up to do this. We sign up to protect everybody, no matter who they are. We sign up to treat everybody fairly, no matter who they are. And when that does not happen, it's not good. For decades, for at least the past decade, every probably 3 to 6 months, at least once a year, you see a black man getting killed on live TV or recordings played over and over and over. And what a lot of people don't realize is that's traumatic. That stuff builds up. And ultimately, when somebody decides to protest, it's kind of hard to tell people how to protest. We witnessed that a few years ago when Colin Kaepernick decided to take a knee. A lot of law enforcement, a lot of my brothers that put this uniform on had an issue with that. And I would tell them, he's not hurting anybody. Oh, well, he's disrespecting the flag. Colin Kaepernick said it many times on video. I'm not disrespecting the flag. I love the troops, but I am against police brutality and the killing of unarmed black men in America. And for anybody to miss that message when he's peacefully protesting, I can never understand it. But what did get our attention is when people decided to hit the streets. And I don't believe it should ever have to come to that. When people talk, just because you can't identify with that or that's not your struggle, listen to them. I'm not saying you're going to have all the answers, but you can't just push what people say aside, because then you get situations like this.
Would you say it's okay to be on both sides?
Absolutely. I think one of our biggest issues in the news is um, partly to blame, and I don't like using the news as a scapegoat or they're trying to pit us all against each other because say that is their goal. The fact that a man died from a knee to the neck after 8.5 minutes, that's still true. So whether the news paints a certain narrative about it, whether you're watching Fox, CNN, NBC, the fact still remains that this happened and you should be angry about it. You have the right to be angry about it. But you also, especially me as a black police officer, that angers me. But I know far too many cops that are so against that. And a lot of people say, well, why don't the good cops do anything? We do. There has been times where intentionally or unintentionally, I see somebody doing something. I say, let's not do that because everybody is entitled to mistakes. But when your mistakes go unchecked and when your mistakes are now violating people's rights, we have to be held accountable. So, yes, I do believe you can be on both sides. I know many officers who are against the George Floyd killing, the murder of George Floyd, but they also are against and they're against police brutality, but they also are against violently looting. They also are against targeting law enforcement. So yes, I do believe that you can definitely be on both sides, and I honestly, for my opinion, recommend that you be on both sides. You have to just because you're a protester doesn't mean you can't be empathetic to what a police officer is going through. As a police officer, one thing that we hate is when somebody throws all of us into the same, all police officers are the same, all cops are bad, things like that. On the flip side, protesters hate the same thing. There are some good people out there in the streets just wanting to get their voices heard, wanting to instigate some change. But you have that 5%, 10% who their job is just to agitate. Their job is to make things bad, and they don't care about George Floyd, and they don't care about anybody else. They just want to bring harm to a cause, or just express their emotions in a way that I don't condone. But majority of the protesters are peaceful people. So yes, you can be on both sides. You can support the protest, and you also can support police being held accountable and being against police brutality.
I'm all for protesting. I think it's a great way to get heard, to put the message out there.
Yeah,
Um, our department does a great job on helping our community protest.
absolutely.
We'll meet with whoever the organizer is. We'll
Yeah.
make sure we'll make it safe. We'll just go through a long process to make sure everybody's safe. On top of protesting, are there other things or ways that you would suggest for people to do to be heard and to start helping?
I think that in order to be heard, sometimes you have to uh, become a part of the establishment. And that does not mean that you have to be a police officer or corrections officer or even a civilian employee with the police department. There are many ways. For example, Metro has a use of force board. I'd recommend more black people take part in these use of force boards. I'd recommend more black people take part in these citizens academies because now our voice is in the same rooms with these decision makers. When we go and watch the news and we see that a lot of police officers are not being disciplined, and I don't want to use the officer who put the knee on George Floyd because I don't have the facts right in front of me, but he had a lot of write-ups and a lot of that was undisciplined. He did not get disciplined for a lot of those things because you don't have people from diverse perspectives and diverse communities making these decisions on this person. So I recommend civilians, community partners, become a part of the decision-making boards that are a part of law enforcement agencies because then you have a voice. Then you can say, no, that's not right. That doesn't make sense. I recommend people just get out there and vote because a lot of the politicians that we vote for, they have a lot of say so. A lot of the DAs that are letting people off and not prosecuting these people, these are people that are voted into these positions. So when we think that our vote doesn't matter, yet we are upset with the decision that the people who are voted in we have to make a change. We have to become part of the solution. So I would say those are two things that I would recommend. But I also would say come join the police department. Come join and learn the proper way that tactics should be conducted so that when you see something in the streets, whether they're a white cop, a black cop, anything, or whether they're doing it on a white person or a black person, you can say, wait, that's not right. Stop doing that. Let's do this the right way. Because there is a right and wrong way to police. And that 5% of officers, because I would be naive to think that Metro is the only agency in America that doesn't have racist individuals on the department. I would be naive to think that every officer on this agency has the best interest for every community member. That's naive of me to think. And it's been proven in history with just incidents that have happened that that's not the case. So I'd recommend if you are good, whether you're white, black, or whatever, become part of the solution, because right now we have people of all walks of life out there protesting. I want those same people to become part of these use of force boards so that they can hold us as law enforcement accountable. I want them to join these academies so that they can be a part of the solution and protect and serve the way that they know it should be done.
You brought up, out of the many things that you brought up that people can join and kind of get an idea or try to help, the Citizen Academy. Can you go a little bit further into that and what it teaches and how it can prepare them for the academy, or in general, just getting a basic understanding of different laws and policies within our state?
And the Citizens Academy, we have two different ones. We have the Hispanic Citizens Academy, and that one is taught predominantly in all Spanish. And then we have the Citizens Academy that is taught in English, so that you can come learn about laws, learn about search and seizure, learn about your amendments, learn about your rights, so that you can pass it on to other community members as far as what police are allowed to do and what police are not allowed to do. And by just educating yourself on that, you are able to better understand why police officers make certain decisions, because a lot of times things that are caught on tape aren't what they appear. And that sounds crazy, but when we are in the digital age and you catch a 10-second snippet of police taking some guy into custody in a way that y'all don't agree with, you don't know what happened to 60 seconds prior to that. And by becoming part of these citizens academies, you're able to say, okay, I see, based on this report, based on the body cam footage, based on the testimony of witnesses, that all this stuff compiled is how they came up to this decision to take this person into custody. And that just gives you a better insight on how police officers do their job. So I'd recommend anybody. Metro does them a few times a year. I'd highly recommend anybody listening to this join a police academy, Citizens Police Academy, so that you are better understand how these officers out here are doing their work and how good they're doing their work.
Being in recruiting, as you know, same with OCE, we talk to our community every single day. We're out there, we're talking to everybody. Something that I've been hearing a lot lately is I've been talking to a lot of people, and I'm hearing that they're afraid to have their children go out to outside. They're afraid for their loved ones to talk to police officers just because they're black. What would you say to those families, to those mothers, those fathers, just everybody that has voiced that concern?
So growing up, and I still have it in my family where a few family members will say to my nieces or nephew, you better stop before your uncle take you to jail, or you better stop before Marquise take you to jail. And I always tell the kids, I'm not taking you to jail. I don't take kids to jail. I take bad people to jail. That is what I do. I don't take kids. I want the kids. And it was ingrained in me, unfortunately. And it's ingrained in a lot of black and brown kids that the police are the militant oppressor that will take your freedom away. And that's just not the case. We take bad people to jail in order to keep the good people safe. That's what we do. We take people who commit crimes to jail. So I want a lot of people to stop instilling that in your kids. Stop telling your kids, whether they are 16, 17, or 2, 3, 4 years old, stop telling them and teaching them that police are the bad guys. Because not only does that instill that in them, by you repeating that so much, it might be programming yourself to think that police are the bad guys. So even as an adult, you might still, by repeating that, might fall for the fact that police are not here to help you. when we really are. And again, unfortunately, seeing certain things in the news, hearing certain stories from family members on how they were taken into custody, or how somebody was murdered on TV, that doesn't help our cause either. Which is why I want people to get both sides of the story. I do want all cops who are out violating people, I want cops who are murdering people unjustly, I want them to be held accountable. But I also want the citizens to educate themselves so that they are better prepared to handle police officers when they do encounter them. It is our job as police officers to adapt and make our community comfortable, but it does not hurt to add that extra little bit of information to yourself when dealing with police officers or any job, anybody.
We've covered a lot of information as far as what your section does about the recruiting councils, just family and current events. Is there anything else you would like to add and just let our community know?
I want my brothers and sisters on this police department, whether you're a police officer, corrections, or civilian, I want you guys out here doing the good work to continue to do the good work. Whenever you are doing something and you might not be doing it the correct way, and your sergeant or your lieutenant comes to you and gives you that constructive criticism, take it. And if you look at this as constructive criticism, I want you to take it, because I want each of us to be better every single day that we put this uniform on, to be able to police the community that we serve. And I also want us to be empathetic to protesters. I want us to know they are fighting for something. Open our ears and listen to what they're saying so that we can avoid future protests. And as far as with the community, I want you guys to know we hear your voices. We do hear your voices. Some of us hear them in different forms. Some of us are just hearing it now, unfortunately. But we hear you, and we want to make sure that us as Metro continue to serve you guys the way that you guys expect for us to serve you. I want you guys to continue to protest, but I also want you to not burn our city down. I don't want you to burn your neighborhoods down. I don't want you to burn down Summerlin, Henderson, North Las Vegas, or Aliante. Handle your business in a way that is safe for everybody, and continue to spread a word that is not drowned out by foolishness. And again, continue to support us, because we definitely need it. We are nothing without our community.
Absolutely. Officer Hines, thanks so much again. This is really important to all of us, especially our department, and make sure that we're all in this together as far as department and the community. So I want to thank you again for coming out here and just talking with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all having me.
And everybody's listening, thank you for listening. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach out to recruiting at lvmpd.com. Or again, you can reach out to Officer Hines. His email is
m14609h@lvmpd.com.
Thank you so much, guys.